I'm Kyle from Boosted Lifestyle. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe. What up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. As you can see, we have our turbo crazy cart thing, whatever you guys want to call it, that's what we'll call it from now on. We did get our sick $7 Amazon gasket so we can assemble this side of the engine. And we did also get a cool little gearbox thingy. This is what we're going to use for steering. Start things off, we have to put silicone in here and put our wires through there. I don't know if I'm the only one who does this, but I always lose the cap to the silicone, so every time I go to reuse it, I just like smash a hole in the side and let it ooze out. So just like, oh, like that. Don't lie, you do it too. Silicone finger. You're just gonna plow it full of stuff and then hopefully it, you know, sorts itself out. Well, they don't exactly fit flush, but hopefully the bolts sort that out with a lot of torque. Time for our wicked sick $7 gaskets. Boom, $7. That was so weird. I wasn't expecting it, but as I was like lowering it over slowly, all of a sudden it was like, whoop, because the magnet inside that piece we just put on like kind of sucked the middle down. It was weird. I've ended up with 2 extra bolts. I have all the bolts in this cover, all the bolts in this thing, and now we have 2 more, starter bolts. Okay, never mind. They're on the back down there. Stupid. And there we go. Now we got some usable wires. I don't know exactly what they do yet, but we're bound to find out eventually because we're gonna need them. Next up, our steering box thing. It's actually a 2-to-1 steering box ratio, so if we want a really tight steering wheel, we can put it so that every time you turn the steering wheel 1 rotation, the shaft on the outside turns 2 times, or we can make it so if you turn the shaft 2 times, the bottom only turns once. So I need to figure out which side we're gonna use. This is for like a 1/3 horsepower motor, so I'm hoping that my arms aren't more than 1/3 of a horsepower, but they might be, because you know. And I think I'm gonna put a U-joint on this side to connect to our shaft, and then a U-joint on this side, just so when we bolt this thing solid, it's not gonna have like any stress on it, if you know what I mean. All right, here's what I'm thinking. We put the box somewhere right here. We put a U-joint between here and here just so there's no tension on this piece, and then a U-joint on top of that up to our steering. I know this shaft fits inside this piece real nice, and if we can cut a piece off this one, this spline actually fits on this side. So we'll try and use this U-joint to connect the box to what's existing on the cart, and then we'll go from the top portion here up to our steering after this is mounted. We went ahead and cut this piece off the shaft right here. Unfortunately, this piece does not fit cleanly inside this piece. So we're gonna have to put it on the lathe and try and turn it down a bit. And once that can fit in there solidly about that far, we can weld it in, and that piece will be spline so we can join to it. Let's see if my rocket appliance math is correct. Oh, we just splined that. We gotta weld it, but we just splined that. So now if we take this thing and we put it inside this thing and weld that thing to that thing, then this thing should go into this thing and we should have a thing made. We made a thing. Look at that. That's a thing. And look, it goes straight up towards that hole in the top that we needed to go to. Just have to build a bracket after, that's all. And it's gonna stick down pretty low, but I guess technically we could angle it a little bit too. Before we get ready to mount this thing, I'm gonna put the wheel back on, we're gonna put it flat down and see how many turns it takes the rack to move the wheels back and forth, and that's gonna determine which side we're gonna use on this thing, if we want a 2-to-1 ratio or a 1-to-2 ratio, because it is not interchangeable once you make your brackets. I don't want to hit my raised car. Ow. All right, from this lock, looks like half, 1 whole rotation. All right, it looks like 1 full rotation on the steering rack is 1 turn, which means if we have the steering wheel on there, it's only gonna be half of a turn. So it's only gonna move a quarter of a turn on the steering wheel in order to lock out the whole wheels. That seems really tight. And if we do it the other way, it's 1 full turn. I think this is a bad ratio either way. So if we go 2 to 1 where the ratio is better on the wheel side, it's only a quarter turn. It's only that far to go lock to lock. I think we should do it the other way where it takes a full turn. So we should put the every 2 turns on the steering wheel equals 1 turn on the output. I think that's the way we're gonna do it. So this will be our up side. This one, every 2 turns of this one gives you 1 turn of the bottom one. Boom! Now we have 2 identical pieces when we unweld them. We don't exactly have long enough bolts currently, but I stole some bolts from my race car just to make sure it was aligned, which it really is. We'll go ahead and we'll cut a piece out of here and a piece out of here and make it look not so squarey and dumb. What we're gonna do is we're gonna measure this as a complete unit with both of our brackets, and it looks to be right around 2 3/4. What I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna tilt the box up to give us a better angle, and then it will actually go straight between these 2 bars. So we need to get a cope on this side, a cope on that side, and then 2 pieces of pipe that are actually gonna center up this piece in between the middle of that. Subscribe! Is it beginning to make sense yet? Here's our angle box. We did tip it up a little bit there, and all we have to do is weld this bottom pipe, build the top pipe right there, sandwich them together, tack it all in, and it should send our steering up that way somewhere, which means it only needs a rod and probably 1 U-joint and a brace after that. Ooh! There we go. I guess technically we're all geared up all the way up to there. Now we just got to go from there and build a steering wheel, which probably harder than expected. Just roll it back over though, without hitting anything, hopefully. Oh, oh yeah. It's doing a thing. So I went ahead and went for a break to get some bolts, and I didn't even really measure. I just kind of was like, those look like the right size, and now that I'm saying it out loud, I realized that we did measure it earlier in this video, and it was 2 3/4 to the outside, so I needed like 3-inch bolts. What size are these? 3.5! That'll work maybe with a washer. Stupid ass. There we go. Now I hope our box is, oh yeah, it's way more tighter in there now. It's not flexing at all. Now we just got to figure out how to support the steering rod. I didn't prepare for this. Well, once again, it's going to be a lot of guessing and cutting and probably redoing things 2 or 3 times because that's how we do it here. Yep, gives me lots of room for my fat ass. Oh, straight up and down right there is going to be minty. Because I can just have the shifter here. What side is it on? This side? I can just be like, F1. It doesn't like being F1. All right, so this little adapter piece here, we're gonna want it on the end of this U-joint. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna chuck a piece of aluminum in the lathe and make it this big on this side and this big on this side, just to have like an alignment tool to put that on there to weld those two together. And then our shaft is gonna come out the top of that, somewhere like this, but raised up a couple inches, and then it'll be straight like that. And we have to figure out a way to put some bearings. We're gonna need 2 bearings on this shaft to stop it from moving any which way, and then somewhere to mount those bearings. And then we should have steering, technically. And everything around here is in theory, so technically it should work in theory. Well, it's definitely tighter than expected. That's what he said. We did a thing. The lathe comes in handy sometimes. Now we need to make a bigger one for the top here. The only thing is it's flat on both sides, but like I said, we just need like a placement holder to match our 1-inch tube up to this thing. So cut another piece out. So technically now, if we put this piece on that piece, and this piece connected to that piece, oh, any second now, yep, there it goes. Then that should be close to our final spot for our steering wheel. Let me just go put the bolts in this thing. Oh yeah, look at that. We could be steering all day, baby. We do need some bearings in this thing. So what I need to do is I need to make this hole bigger right here where the shaft goes through, because the U-joint is going to get welded to both sides, and then this piece actually has to fit through that hole, which it's not going to the way it sits. So we'll pull this out, we'll make that hole bigger, we'll weld up our U-joints, and we can put it back together and technically see if it steers, but with nothing holding that in place. See if it'll steer. Ish. Nope.
No, what's wrong with it?
It might be too much of an angle.
Oh. You know.
Oh, in fact, I broke the.
Do you want to try my drink?
The
My
welds.
post-workout drink?
I broke my welds.
You broke?
Yeah, I broke. That's okay though, because I kind of fucked it up.
You just tack it there? Try this. It's my post-workout drink.
Oh, gross.
You don't like it?
No.
It's like a vanilla with some of the watermelon stuff in it.
Gross.
I think it's actually really good.
It's really gross.
Last time I put chocolate pudding in it, oh, it was so good.
Well, I broke off my tack welds because it's actually really hard to turn. But I also noticed something else, that if I do tack weld that piece onto that shaft and then that piece on that shaft, I have no way to slide a bearing onto the shaft anymore. So I backed myself into a predicament now, and I've got to figure it out.
Figure it out, baby.
Look at you going to the gym. You look basically the Hulk now. Okay, let's try this one more time. What happened was my aluminum washer thing actually slipped up and got caught between some stuff. So I re-welded it up, and hopefully now it turns the wheels. Why? You can't be at that bad of an angle, can you? Wait, what just broke again? So most freely there. Oh, it is. I didn't think it was that crazy of an angle, but it seems to be a little bit of an angle. Oh, that's easy. So just the angle of the steering knuckle. So the steering angle definitely looks a little stupid, actually. I'm gonna have to put another U-joint in that thing somewhere. Sorry for that math confusion there. What I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to add another U-joint in the thing to get the steering at the angle that I want it so it doesn't look super dumb. So I've cut our piece off here. We'll put another U-joint in it and then it's gonna give us a little bit more angle at the way we want it. And we're just gonna have to put a carrier bearing style thing right here on this piece before we weld this one on. And yeah, and then we can put our shaft on the other side. So what I did was I tacked another U-joint on this piece, and I actually tack welded this bearing set in here. And what I'm going to do now is going to take this piece on the lathe, turn it down a little bit so the bearings fit over it pretty easy, and then just see if we can mock up a steering next. All right, all right, all right. So this is going to join up to there-ish. That's gonna sit somewhere like that. That looks a lot better than it did before. And it's probably more comfortable. And I can always shorten the steering because the seat's gonna go somewhere there. Oh yeah, that's way better than it was before. So as long as we can get this to link up like this and actually move the steering, I think we'll be okay. But I gotta remember it's a full turn to lock. Now for whatever reason, this 1-inch shaft doesn't fit inside the 1-inch bearing. I don't know if it's supposed to be like a press fit stupid thing or whatever, but I don't know why they would put the lock pieces on it. Anyways, it doesn't fit. I'm actually gonna try and bore out a little bit of the center of this one so it can fit over the other shaft there and then make a mount for the other one as well. All right, I have an idea, and in my head it already doesn't work, but I'm not gonna know if it doesn't work until I prove that it doesn't work. If that makes sense. We have this bar right here, and we're gonna weld a nut in each side of it. Just so it's threaded. We're gonna put that bar across here where there's holes already, across here where there's holes already made, and we're gonna tack weld it to this piece, and this piece is under the U-joint, and then there's one above the U-joint, and hopefully that makes it work. I don't think it will. I think that it has to be this piece supported with 2 U-joints, but I mean 2 bearings, but I don't know. Like I said, I'm not gonna know that it doesn't work until I know it doesn't work, basically. Oh my God, it works. I did it. I made it work. How did I do that? So we went down from our U-joint here, and then on this shaft we put a bearing, and then there's a U-joint here, and then this shaft, there's also a bearing. We got steering, boys. Look at that. What the shit? We got steering. It's not aligned right now because there's a bit of slop to the steering as well. With all our U-joints, there's a bit of slop there. But overall, I ain't mad. I ain't mad at all. There's like a bit of slop to our steering here. I don't know where exactly. It might be our 77 U-joints in this thing, but you know what? I'm not mad at all. Look at this thing. It works. It needs a lot of welding now though. So to recap our steering real quick, it comes from here. There's one U-joint right there, another U-joint there. It goes down into a steering box down at the bottom. that steering box goes to another U-joint, which goes to a shaft, which goes to another U-joint, which goes to another U-joint to the steering box. But that's the only way to go down and under the engine to give us some steering. Now that I think about it, we probably could have went from like here and just scooted around the engine really tight right there and hit the steering rack, except the exhaust was in the way because the turbo is where I want it to be. I've been reaching out to people trying to figure out the electronics for this thing, and that's what I'm trying to plan out next in my head, is trying to get this thing running and starting and having fun. But I'm glad we got the steering out of the way. I would go take it outside, except it needs a lot of welding left onto it. But make sure you subscribe to the channel. Peace easy. Get that beat.